Welcome to One on One. I'm Greg Bassey, your host from the Salisbury Independent newspaper. It was the biggest weekend ever in the history of Salisbury this past weekend. We are all blown away by what we just saw, and we got the man in here to explain to us what we just saw. Mayor Jake Day, welcome, Mayor.
Hey, Greg, how are you?
How did you do this?
Well, with a lot of people, a lot of time, a lot of energy, and I'm sure a little dose of magic. This is obviously a big weekend. The one factor beyond our control affected our Sunday, and I'll share some statistics with you that we've just learned. So Sunday was a little smaller than we all thought it would be, but overall,
I walked around Sunday morning. It's pouring rain, and every tent had people in it.
Yes.
And they were all having fun.
Right. So
having fun.
Here's the cool thing about Sunday is that I went Sunday, I got there right at noon, and I was thinking, like, this makes me sad that we're not going to go out with the bang the way we came in with the bang. And Saturday worked to this great crescendo, and we just won't have that same bang Sunday. And boy, was I wrong, just because the enthusiasm of the people there.
They wanted it.
Oh, it was fantastic. It was fantastic. So that enthusiasm certainly translated to a real feeling of, especially in the final performance of the West African High Life Band on the Purdue stage, this really just family, magical, powerful moment where I think Salisbury was there. Memo Derricker from Beacon, Dr. Memo Derricker, had a large contingent of students out there surveying people to try to understand things like, where are you from?
Right.
How far did you travel? Are you a day tripper? Are you staying overnight? What hotel? Trying to get a sense of these details so that we can build the economic impact assessment, and so that we can estimate what we should see in economic impact next year. That's part of the contract that we have with them. And what he told us is that Friday night, we saw a 70-30 local to visitor split.
Right.
Saturday, we saw a 60-40
right.
Local to visitor split. Sunday, 95-5. So Sunday was mostly Salisburyans, It was and I say Salisburyans, it was Princess Anne and, Seaford and, Cambridge and Ocean City too, but it was shore folk.
Right.
People who didn't travel too far. The folks that were staying in hotels seemed like they went home. They bailed on the last day, which you can understand.
Right.
But in spite of that, there was this enthusiasm, and it was really like I was talking to my community when when we got on stage at the end and just said, "Thank you. We love you. This is a beautiful moment, and Salisbury is forever transformed as a result of it." And every community we talked to that had hosted this before said that, and then the NCTA said that. The NCTA kept telling us things that we second guessed, that we said, and I'm not saying we lacked confidence, but it was things like, yeah, well, that sounds great, but we're Salisbury, and we're going to do it our way, or we're Salisbury, and we don't think it'll be that big or that good, or whatever, and every time we were proven wrong.
Well, they are the experts.
Almost like they've done this for 77 years before this year. So, a dose of humility there of, okay, we should have listened to these folks. They are the experts, and they've done a great job for 78 years now, and this is no exception.
And you're going to learn from all of it.
Of course. And that's the idea. I mean, you do learn from year to year. You learn not only things you want to tweak, and we learned a lot that we want to tweak, but I think you'll learn what your community is capable of. internally, our field operations division, our police department, our fire department, our infrastructure and development department, our housing and community development department, our information services, they all, every department, I think, learned that they were capable of more than they ever thought. And it's amazing what a deadline will do for you.
Right.
When you got to get it done,
right.
It's amazing what people can do. But it goes way beyond just city employees. The community, I think, proved that we're capable of more than we thought we were.
Well, the Friday night thing reminded me of the old Sunfest in Ocean City when that first started. The locals would go Friday night, you'd see your friends, and then you'd hand it over to the tourists for the weekend, basically.
Okay, that makes sense.
And if there's an act you wanted to go see, you'd go see it. But you'd done it all on Friday night, and you saw everyone, and it was like, this is great, this is cool. And now it'll attract people. And I got kind of the same feeling on Saturday. I didn't see as many people as I normally, as I had on Friday. But then the vibe was completely different.
Yeah.
But it was people who were really there to see the folk festival. And the best thing about Saturday, and I didn't anticipate this, even read it in the paper, the street performers. There were 300 kids around every street performer. And I'm telling you, Jake, those kids, it's going to be programmed in their head when they were kids in Salisbury. It's going to mean something to them for years. And that was something I didn't even anticipate at all.
That's so wonderful. And I missed it. And I missed, because so many things are going on simultaneously, and I got caught up in a lot of conversations, hence my voice.
Right.
I missed so many of the performances I wanted to see. I never once saw the Quebe sisters perform.
Oh my gosh.
Not once.
I cried.
Did you really?
I cried. They were that good. I cried.
I met them at the end at the West African High Life performance, which was a band that I had no interest, frankly, in going to see. And it was just, they blew me away.
Right.
They blew me. It was an emotional performance. It was so incredible. Rozelle, the beatboxer, he took me until the last day on the last stage to see them.
And he's this man who's just making noise, and it's like unbelievable.
Right? Yeah.
Like how does he do this?
I met a couple who's from Montana, and they ran into, literally at the same time, a couple from Montana and my parents and I all converged in this intersection, and they were asking which way was the Purdue dance stage, and they were coming from the Inuit Throat Singers, and my parents had seen them
Which was another one that made people cry.
So I missed that too. But the Inuit Throat Singers, apparently my parents and this couple from Montana were both saying this was like the highlight of the weekend for them. You learn a lot, your world gets opened. And that's part of the magic of it. It's not just a community coming together. It's not just a community, showing itself off to others. Like there's a learning opportunity, a cultural learning opportunity. And I feel like I've benefited from that. I grew. Speaking of the impact that the street performers had on those kids, the parade on Friday night, hands down, was the most special thing I've ever experienced in my life as a Salisburian. And it was also the largest gathering of people I've ever seen in Salisbury.
Well, we were wondering about that. I was talking to Tom Horton, who has a pretty good beat on the history, and he's like, there have never been this many people in downtown Salisbury ever as right now.
Nor in any other place in Salisbury.
Right.
I mean, it was clearly the largest gathering of people we've ever had. And, to think that we're going to keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger is exciting.
Right.
It's exciting. And
it really, you had to want it, and it was great.
that was what was cool about Sunday. You had to want it.
Yeah.
Everybody was soaked, and it was still so much fun.
Yeah, Sunday, the city stage in front of my office, I had to leave town like around 2, and not the mariachi band, but one of the bands, the Latino bands was up there with all dancing. There's a lot of people. And there was probably 100 people watching. There were probably 1,000 chairs there, but there's 100 die-hard people.
Yeah.
It was driving rain. And the performers, when they were done, they came off stage, and I was in the back, so I could see them talking to each other. And they were just thrilled with their performance, and they were soaking wet, and they were happy to do it, and they loved being in Salisbury. It's like, I would be like, do I have to go out there? But they were totally into it.
The performers coming off stage and interacting with people was, I think, the most special part of this from the talent standpoint. They were really good. They blew me away. I learned a lot. But the fact that they were also personable, Steve Riley and the Mamu Playboys,
Yeah.
the Cajun
They were
musicians.
really good.
And he was so nice, so personable. I met him off stage at one point. You know, he didn't even use his name. He was like, "Hi, nice to meet you." And I was like, "Who is this guy?" They're like, "The guy that was just on stage."
Right.
That's Steve Riley, you know. And then the West African High Life Band came out. The Quebe Sisters, Razel walking around talking to
Razel
people.
was amazing.
Just unbelievable, unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, I was kind of ducking him because I didn't want to have to talk to him because I knew I would be too embarrassed. Just I want to get to know that guy.
Yeah. Oh, I know. I was starstruck by these people who I didn't know
the
who
Quebe
they were.
Sisters, it was like, gosh, how did you all come into town? Did you come in through Delaware? I'm sorry, that's not the best way to see Salisbury on Route 13, but we're working on that. And they're looking at me like, what are you talking about? You know, but I was just starstruck. I was
Yeah.
completely starstruck.
Me too. And talking to one of the sisters, you know, on the dance floor, talking to them as the West African High Life Band played. I was saying, I'm sorry I hadn't seen you all. I was really excited to. And she volunteered. She said, "Look, we've done several first years of the National Folk Festival, and this is the best audience that we've ever had."
Yeah.
This was on Sunday when it was, you know, relatively small. There were maybe 250 people left at the Purdue stage. You know, at that point, this was right as West African High Life was starting up before it kind of ballooned a little bit.
Right.
And you know, so it didn't feel like a big crowd to me.
Right.
And it wasn't a big crowd on Sunday. But it was a special crowd, and it was an enthusiastic crowd. And she said all weekend, she said, "You all have been so generous with the cheering and the support." And so that was great to hear.
Yeah.
And I shared earlier today that at that volunteer orientation when I arrived, my thought process was from the perspective of someone who might volunteer for something else that I wasn't involved in planning. And I'm thinking, there's like a 50-50 chance I'd show up to the orientation, right? You know, I'm volunteering. Maybe I signed up for ice or pouring beer. Or
Right.
I can do it without you telling me how, right?
Right.
So am I going to show up to the orientation and show up for my shift
Right.
or shifts? If I sign up for multiple shifts, maybe, maybe not. And to my surprise, we walk into the Civic Center, and they had set up 900 chairs, and it was standing room.
It looked like the
only.
poultry hearing.
It was right. It was standing room only behind those chairs. So I was just blown away with Salisbury. And in fact, I got up on stage and said how blown away with Salisbury I was. And then I got scolded when I got off stage by a lady from Princess Anne, a guy from
no.
Cambridge,
Oh, no.
a guy from Seaford, a lady from Ocean City.
That's
and they were
good.
like, you know, it's not just Salisbury who's supporting this, you know, it's the whole shore. Hey, I love you for it. Thank you. But on top of that, talking to Julia, you know, we knew we'd done well.
This is Julia Olin, who's
Julia
the executive
Olin, the
director
executive
for
director
the
of the
Nashville,
NCTA.
right?
We knew we had done well with regard to volunteer recruitment, so we were very proud of that, of course. But you still don't know, you know, how we compare to other places. And Julia shared with me in advance of my talking to a reporter. I said, "How are we doing?" And she gave me a few stats, a few tidbits of information. And she said, one of the things that we try to do as a city builds to its legacy festival in the 4th year and beyond, we want to leave you with a volunteer core that is both sizable and competent. And so we try to train you up through those years, train you as a community up through those years for that. And she said, and by year 4, we want you to be there. She said, Salisbury was there year 1. You're already there. She's like, we don't have to train you.
Great community leader, Joe Ollinger, was doing the boot brigade. And I was like, how's it going? He goes, well, they don't really know what they're doing. He goes, but I've got like 11 ideas for next year.
Yeah.
And I was like, he's already going to improve this and collecting the money. He's like, first of all, you got to stand in front of the stage and they make the announcement, you hold the boot up, and then you go. It's like church. You had to pass the collection
Right.
plate in
Pass
the
the
church. You
collection
can't
plate.
just put the plate in the back of the church.
And just hope that people will give.
But he's going to go in there and improve that process.
I think we definitely could stand to improve the bucket brigade
Right.
process. We had a goal of $20,000, I think, in a $2.3 million a year budget.
Right.
$1.3 million cash. It's a relatively small piece, but it's still important. Every piece is important. $20,000, that would be an important donor, right? So that relieves pressure from some sponsor or sponsors, and it allows everybody to be a part of it. You mentioned Joe Ollinger, and I want to take a second to just talk about him. Joe Ollinger, from the first day you could volunteer, was there every single day working to set up for the festival. He was, if there's a volunteer award to give, I'm giving it to him, because that guy just gave his whole heart to this event.
But yeah, he's a smart guy, and he knows what he's doing, and he's got great ideas, and we had to catch up.
He does. He's got great ideas, and he just worked his tail off, and I'm so grateful for him for that. So thank you, Joe Ollinger.
Yeah.
But a lot of people worked so hard. Sponsors, staff, the NCTA team and their technical and production staff, the vendors, they worked really hard, the volunteers. So I really just want to say thank you. I mean, to our whole community, I'm just so grateful for all of them. And so grateful that so many people showed up, especially Friday and Saturday, but also to that Sunday crew. You got heart. You got heart. So thank you to the Sunday crew.
That Purdue stage was a little oasis over there. Because people was out of the way, and I think people didn't understand. But I went there a couple times, and there were the dance lessons that were going on. It was a very much more intimate place, big dance floor. Just a great environment. The vendors were right there, and there was these guys from Philadelphia selling crab cakes. I was like, this is not going to work. I'm going to really not like this. It was one of the best crab cakes I've ever had from these schmo guys from
Philly crab cake.
Yeah, from Philly. I was like,
Philly
this is going to be
crab
like a halibut crab cake or something. It was delicious.
Be like the Salisbury cheesesteak.
Right, exactly. It was just delicious.
Actually, food was really good. I did eat more than I should have eaten.
Right.
Yeah, but.
And then walking down the plaza, I was wondering how the local vendors were going to be doing, because they all had opinions about what was going to happen.
Right.
You go by
Rody Joe's.
Rody Joe's.
Rody Joe's.
Nice crowd in there. They had a little band going.
Yeah.
It wasn't too crowded, but there were people in there. There was a line for pizza at Mayabella's, just enough 15-person line, so they weren't panicked. They were just serving people pizza.
Right.
There was the sushi place was full. The coffee shop had a nice little line.
Yeah.
I was like, this is just, it's not too crowded.
Right.
It's not dead.
Well, the plaza
it looked good.
The plaza was off the, it was in the footprint, but it was off the stage beaten
It was a
path.
cut through for me. It was a cut through from Purdue back to City
Cut
Stage.
through from Purdue to City.
Yeah.
I think what we saw and what we've learned and what we've heard is that there were certain restaurants, local restaurants downtown, that are close to the footprint that just for whatever reason were missed by people. Whether or not there were food vendors in that area, which is kind of the idea of the festival, but we still want everybody to do well. That were just missed, and then there were others that made a killing. There were restaurants like Rody Joe's and Mojo's, which is outside of the footprint. That just had great weekends, and then there were restaurants like Brew River and Acorn. I think that you didn't catch the same crowd for whatever reason.
Governor again was here. He's almost here too much and likes us too much. He's almost annoying. It's almost like, okay, is there any place else you can go hang out?
I'm not annoyed. I'm not annoyed. I remain delighted that he was
but
here.
But he was here for several hours on Friday.
He was.
He did the walk from downtown out to the PRMC stage and spoke.
Could you ever have imagined that, you'd be born there, your office used to be here, and now you're sitting there on a hill watching the governor kick off a
that
giant
mariachi
music
band,
festival.
I love that mariachi band.
Mariachi Los Camperos.
Yeah.
They were incredible.
And then the Queeby sisters, and I yelled at Hulda. I was doing, Hulda! And she turned and looked at me, and I was like...
It was a lot of fun.
I have to ask.
Yeah.
How much did the city spend? Everyone says, oh, well, anything costs, it must have been millions of dollars.
$100,000. That's the city's investment.
So the city's investment is $100,000.
Yeah. So if we fall short on cash fundraising on site. We did not fall short in fundraising. We fundraised what we needed to fundraise. But if we fell short in terms of earned income, earned revenue from beer sales, merchandise sales, things like that, or the Bucket Brigade, we will continue fundraising through that. So the city, is probably in for what it's going to be in for a given year. The state of Maryland, $100,000 cash, but another $300,000 in kind in a variety of other things.
Right.
Maryland Heritage Areas Authority, $50,000. There's a lot of big state investors, but almost all of the money comes from private sponsorships.
Because it's a cultural arts event.
Oh yeah.
And there are people in our world who want us to be exposed to culture arts.
And who, frankly, they get to market to. These businesses, they get to market to. I mean, Avery Hall and Salisbury University and Purdue and Pohanka and the Henson Foundation, they all get to market to, these visitors, and good for them. They should be able to. They should be allowed to do that, and it should produce a return for them. They should be able to gain some cachet with customers or potential customers by saying, I am a part of this, and I helped make this happen. My business helped make this happen.
Is there going to be like a huge overtime bill that's going to hit, or
no.
You're going to be able to manage that?
Yeah, well, we anticipated overtime, and that's part of our in-kind contribution. We anticipated that there was going to be an overtime piece, but a lot of it is, we worked. We worked people during the day and during shifts, and in the week before there was some overtime usage, and it was by design. So we anticipated that, we budgeted for that this year, and we're counting that as an in-kind contribution to the festival. So it's real money that gets paid out to the employee, but we've already budgeted for that, so that's not new money. And so the festival accounts for that as in-kind contribution. So $100,000 in the scheme of a $1.3 million budget, in the scheme of $15 to $30 million year one economic impact.
You had to bring $20 million in.
Yeah, so that's the other thing. So we'll know, thanks to Beacon, we'll know soon what the economic impact is. And now that we've got some good numbers on attendees that we're excited to share, we're hopeful that the economic impact numbers are going to be right at or above where we wanted them to be.
You did not have a year to do this. Now you have a year to the next one.
Yeah, and a lot of it did happen in less than a year. And it was a big lift. This is a lot of work. And in the meantime, we were building things. We were building city projects that we wanted to get done in advance of the festival.
Right.
So this was a major undertaking, and it's going to be a little easier next year. One of the biggest things that we had to do was build a lot of stuff for the use of the festival. So we assembled platforms. And these are just risers that sound equipment goes on, or that you use as a step to get into a stage or something like that. Building and painting risers and cutting the wood.
Great volunteer turnout for that too.
Fantastic. Yeah. Building the dance floor for the dance stage. Painting the donation cans. I mean, there's a lot of these things that we don't have to do again next year or the following year. The risers are expected to last 10 to 15 years. That's what other cities tell us. So we can anticipate that we won't have that work for a long time. So not only does the fundraising lift get easier in year two, so does the volunteer lift, the pre-festival volunteer lift. So we've got a lot of work ahead of us, but one, we've got a year under our belt. Two, people know what to expect a little bit and are kind of trained to, okay, I know what to do. I know what to show up, where to show up and when and how. And three, a lot of the things that we have to do in advance of this year, we don't have to do in advance of next year.
I swear I only had one beer the whole night on Friday, but there was a moment there where I guess I was standing there at the old Daily Times at the PRMC stage, and I thought, this is a different town than the one I grew up in. This town has finally switched over to something else, and it's on its way to a new mission. It's going to be different than what it was. Am I crazy?
No, that is the most frequent comment I've heard.
Really?
Thank you. It's this is a different city now.
Yeah.
And I literally have heard that thousands of times.
Wow.
You're not the only person who feels that way. And what's really interesting is, we did a lot of designing in terms of the roles and responsibilities of people during the festival. Tons of planning and org charts and the IAP, the Incident Action Plan, and tons of that. And there's a huge organization chart. And what we did was work really hard to design me out of it and to design Julia Glanz, the city administrator, out of it, so that we're free to still run the city when we need to. Other things are going on, by the way, and we're free to make big decisions if moments of crisis occur and the people in leadership can't and need to phone a friend.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So we did a lot of that. So what I found was I was able to show up to the festival and say, I guess I need to get a corn dog and a beer. I was a tourist in my own city.
Right.
And, what an interesting way to spend a couple of days. I was able to just have conversations with people constantly and just listen to what they had to say.
To be the host, which is who you are.
And it was so special to just be there and not to have to, I didn't pick up my radio. I failed to pick up my radio. And of course the phone goes off the hook the whole time, but I was able to just engage and just be and just see our city. And I felt the same way, that the experience on Friday night, like I said, was the most special thing I've ever seen in Salisbury in my life. And I've seen a lot of special things in my lifetime here, but the most special thing I've ever seen or witnessed or been a part of. And it didn't end with that. There were lots of special moments after that. And you couldn't help but feel like if I were visiting another city, I'd say, great job, wow, that was fun. I had a good time. And the only reason I wouldn't hear is because, I'm in the weeds and I'm trying to make things happen. But great job, to a lot of people.
Walking back to the car, I parked over there behind Trinity, and I was walking back to the car Friday night, thinking about how different things were. And then, of course, there is the symbol of everything that was the actual poster child of the government not able to get anything done for 2 decades. The standpipe is painted and lit like the Washington Monument. And I was like, okay, finally things are right.
We did that for you, Greg.
Well, Eric Saylor is actually the real guy on that, but he was really had big problems. But it was just like it all come together, and I was like, we're there.
Yeah,
we're there.
So I met a guy who actually works at WBOC, and he lives over there. And he made one request last night. He was at the volunteer party, and he said, Mayor, I have one request. Can you give me some blackout curtains? Because the light on the Lemon Hill standpipe is right in my window. And I said, don't worry, that's a temporary light. The permanent lights are coming later this fall, and they are going to be attached and right straight up on the standpipe. They will not be in your window unless you're living in the standpipe, which he is not. And he said, okay, thank you. We went outside, we looked at the standpipe, the light was off. I was like, you're going to sleep tonight. Yeah.
He's Mayor Jake Day. Somehow he did it. He and everyone else did it. It wasn't just him. They did it. And wow, what a weekend. I'm blown away.
Thank you, Greg. And thanks for having me on.
No, thanks for being here today.
Appreciate it.
I'm Greg Bassett from the Salisbury Independent Newspaper, another edition of 101 right here on Pack 14.
First Shore Federal is proud to support PAC 14 and one-on-one. We'd encourage every business to support PAC 14 and pick a program and support it, and let's make a difference.
We came all the way from Salisbury to the National Folk Festival.
We're here in Salisbury at the National Folk Festival and we're having fun.
I think this is the best thing ever happened to Salisbury, Maryland. I never believed it would happen in 50 years that I've been here. It's going to make a change for the Eastern Shore, for sure.
I came all the way from Salisbury, Maryland for the National Folk Festival.